The years may change, but some things don't. Here I am, still just yapping away about movies. Happy 2025. I hope that you had a great celebration. I actually am recording this on the 31st, so this is going to be my New Year's look. Hopefully I've made it back alive to edit this video. But if you're seeing it, that means I'm the boy who lived. Welcome, or welcome back. If you're a returner, new year, same shtick. Hello, I'm the Antichrist, here to collect your souls via the subscribe button. So please click that if you've never done that before. Join us. Join my cult. Also click the like button and the notification bell, that way you never miss the next video, because I am here every single week talking about movies, and today I have to talk about everything that I watched in the month of December. I always start with the TV shows that I watched, and then I get into all the non-horror movies, then we get into my horror rewatches, and then finally my new watches of old horror, and then we talk new releases. The December recap is a little bit awkward because sometimes it feels like, well, these aren't really new releases anymore because now it's a new year, and this is last year's news, so bear that in mind. They are 2024 releases, but that's out of my control. First up, TV shows. I took a break from Ash vs. Evil Dead, so I'm gonna jump right into the Creep tapes. This show ended up underwhelming me, and when I was seeing a lot of reviews come in, people were getting pretty stoked about the last episode, and at that point, after I'd watched like the first 4 episodes, it had really fallen off to me, and I was like, okay, well, at least I have the last episode to look forward to, because I loved the first episode. I thought the second episode was alright, and then it completely fell off for me. Like, it never really came back. Mild spoilers, but you find out right in the beginning of the 6th episode that his mother becomes a character. So you meet her, but at that point, it was kind of too little too late. Like, that didn't really do anything for me. That might have interested me if that was the whole concept for like a Creep 3, because I love the woman that he plays off of in Creep 2, and I think kind of further exploring that type of interpersonal relationship with his mom in a 3rd movie would have been sick, but there just was like too much that came before that, and then I felt like not enough time devoted to his mom, and I don't know, the whole thing just kind of fell flat for me. On paper, it seems like a great concept for a TV show. It feels like it makes a lot of sense. And then practically, I wasn't crazy about the execution. Still love Mark Duplass. If he gets a 2nd season, then I will watch it, but I'd be more excited to see what movie he does next. I also started watching season 9 of Queer Eye with my family. That's a bit of a tradish, and I'm really enjoying the new guy, Jeremiah. I do miss Bobby, but I think that Jeremiah was cast well. Finally, I also have restarted Severance because the new season comes out on January 27th, and I am stoked. I'm finally showing it to my partner, and he really loves it too. So good. And the first season is totally worth the rewatch leading up to season 2. But that does it for TV shows. This month I am planning on diving back into Ash vs. Evil Dead. I watched the first season back in November, and then I just took this past month off because other stuff was coming out. So hopefully I either finish it this month or at least get through season 2. Getting into all the non-horror of December. Again, there was quite a lot of it, but a lot of it is like Christmas stuff that I don't need to talk to you about. For instance, Our Little Secret, Carry On, and A Nonsense Christmas with Sabrina Carpenter. I bundled those together and I talked about them over on the Patreon because I was like, let's just talk about the current state of the Netflix Christmas content. And yes, I called it content. Sorry. Sabrina's special was my favorite of the 3 of those. I enjoyed Carry On, and Our Little Secret, let's just not speak of it. I also don't need to get into the Santa Claus, the Grinch, or White Christmas. I've talked about those movies before, and we're done with the holidays. We're done. So let's kick things off with music by John Williams. This is a documentary that Disney Plus released, and it's not a hard-hitting documentary by any means. It literally just is a highlight reel of John Williams' best hits, basically, and it made both me and my father cry. We have shared so many memories watching the movies that he's composed. It was a very emotional experience. It was perfect. It was exactly what I wanted. I didn't need like a real journalistic take, like an inspection on John Williams. I love being able to just sit there and cry at all of my favorite movie memories. So I obviously highly recommend, and I also really recommend the next one, Flow. This is an animated feature that actually did make it to several theaters, and I'm sure that it will be receiving many an accolade this award season. Flow is a completely dialogue-free film, and it mainly follows this cat as it picks up new acquaintances and friends during this great biblical flood. The fact that this movie had no dialogue, I think, was so perfect. And also, all the animals in the movie were not heightened due to the animation. The way that they moved was like completely anatomically correct, which was super interesting, just because that's not usually what you see in animation. But then it also still kind of had that surreal quality of looking almost painted, and I think that it was computer generated animation, but still looked as though there were many hands on it. There are some moments that are kind of transcendent and and part of it is kind of like learning to be self-sufficient, learning to be brave. Like there's a little bit of that going on, but I didn't take away that much thematically from the movie. It just was a gorgeous bath, a wash over my eyes. Highly recommend Flow, especially as we're getting closer to the Oscars. Next up would be The Jungle Book, and you already know this has been around since like the late 60s, and I was surprised to see that there was kind of like a trigger warning in front of this movie about how it has insensitive depictions in it, and I was like, oh my god, like I watched this on repeat as a child, like I don't even know what this could be talking about, and it didn't say what it was in reference to, which I found really weird. So like when it pops up on other movies, I think like on the Aristocats too, you have to do your own research, like you have to dig around to like find out what Disney is even warning you about, which is weird. I feel like that information should be a little bit more accessible. I learned that it was in reference to the King Louis character, and once I found that online, I was like, oh my god, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Maybe there is like an info tab. Let me see. Disney Plus. Oh, it won't let me log in. I'm using my very old laptop right now because my regular one is being fixed, so I'm like logged out of everything. Nice. Anyway, was obsessed with The Jungle Book as a kid. I even had like really short hair and I was always up in trees, and so my mom lovingly referred to me as Mowgli sometimes. No, I didn't like that, and I was surprised to find that on a rewatch, I thought it was just okay. I thought the animation was gorgeous. I was really taken by that. The songs are pretty good. Other than that, it's okay. That also inspired me to rewatch Frozen, which I hadn't seen since it came out in 2013. So I was 14 at the time, and I remember thinking it was really funny. I really enjoyed it. I saw it with a friend, and I remember at that time thinking the music was good, and Olaf, oh, that silly old snowman. This movie is so ugly. I like detested the look of this film. I know that seems harsh, but coming off of The Jungle Book, which is just so rich in texture and in its layers, and then watching a movie that just feels so soulless and there's no detail in the clothing. Anna and Elsa almost look identical except for their hair, and it's subjective. It is, sure, so you could feel free to push back. I just think that if you think that Frozen looks good, you're tacky. Next up, I also don't really need to talk about this one, but we have Twilight. I hosted a little drinking game evening at my home, and it was perfect and amazing, and once again, I got trashed. Twilight is definitely going to come up again soon because I've decided that with the release of Nosferatu and going back and exploring more of vampire cinema, that I want to do my top 10 vampire movies. I think it's about time. I also rewatched the first 4 Harry Potter movies. Again, my partner had never seen them, and I hadn't done a rewatch since 2020, I think. So also going to be continuing on with that one next month, and then, I don't know, maybe on the Patreon or something, I'll rank them, I don't know. Queer is up next. The second Luca Guadagnino film of 2024. Lee recounts his life in Mexico among expatriate American students. He pursues a young man named Allerton, a U.S. Navy serviceman recently discharged from Jacksonville, Florida. Queer left an odd sort of flavor in my mouth. I think it was generally well done. The metaphors they used to explore desire and the visuals they used were like super interesting. Definitely felt connected with those. Other than that, I didn't connect very much with the pacing. And while there were some very like extremely tender moments that Daniel Craig did such an excellent job that showcased kind of his loneliness and again the desire, for a lot of it felt like we were kind of just ambling along. Like the pacing was a little bit too slow for my liking, and I wanted it to feel a little bit more charged. Like I wanted just a little bit more juice, especially because it is Luca, and maybe that just wasn't the right expectation, but I think because he's the same director as Challengers, I was expecting it to be a little bit more horny, even though I think that there was less sex in Challengers. I just wanted to feel a similar intensity, and that doesn't mean that I want it to be like, oh, you know, balls flying back and forth. I'm talking about tennis, and like legitimately fast. I don't know. I just didn't connect with this one as much. That's all I'm trying to say. Drew Starkey is also great. Apparently he was in the Hellraiser reboot, but he was completely unrecognizable in this movie. And it's been a while since that one came out, but I'm like, damn, I wish that some of this sensuality could have been in Hellraiser, because that one was dry. Anyway, let's move on to Before Sunrise. I finally watched this amazing Richard Linklater classic. What can even be said that has not already been spoken? Nothing, probably. This one was, it was so relatable to me as somebody that even just last year, like I spent 2 months straight just like traveling up and down the UK and Europe. It is a place that I frequent, and so the fact that they are just exploring this Austrian city, it was so beautiful, but they really did a good job of capturing some of the plainness of those, you know, famous European cities. When you walk down some of those alleyways, it's like you're in any other city really, but it depends who you're with. Who you're with is what really ultimately makes it magical. The fact that they weren't doing the big touristy things like you usually see when a movie is shot in London or something. I don't know why I'm thinking of The Parent Trap, but you know, they drive past all the major statues, even though you wouldn't pass even a single one of those on the way home from Gatwick, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe they flew in from Heathrow, but whatever. The point is, I didn't really feel like Richard Linklater was exploiting the beauty of the city to sell the romance. He really chose the most plain places, like them just riding in the trolley together and having this big, long, unbroken shot just to showcase their chemistry. Oh my god. The movie made me, oh no. I got a handle on it, but like, if I think about it too much, I have been known to cry a little bit on this channel. Not today. I'm not messing up my New Year's makeup. I just love Ethan Hawke so much. He's just such a human. Oh god. Anyway, okay, but next up, I don't want to talk about Emilia Perez. I don't want to touch this one. I don't want to get into it. I don't. I talked about it with my dad over on the Patreon this past week. We talked about some unpopular 2024 film opinions. We hated this movie. It was without a doubt one of my least favorite releases of the year. Thought it was so weird, so strange. Not one good song, overlong, overstuffed with too many themes at odds with one another. No good. No good, sorry. Now, Argylle, I did decide that I had to watch one of the least popular non-horror movies of the year before I did my non-horror movie ranking, and I liked it, guys. Is this a safe space for me to admit that I liked Argylle? Okay, is this a safe space to admit that I had fun? Yes, obviously it is, because this is my land. This is where I rule. I am the dictator of this channel, and I liked it. So I hereby decree that this is a safe space for those of us that enjoyed Argylle. This was me like knighting you, kind of. I said on Letterboxd that this seemed like a pill in cheese scenario for anyone expecting an actual spy movie. It was a completely satirized take on the spy genre. I also felt like it was a satirized take on a Netflix action film. I felt very much in on the joke the entire runtime. Like, I just was having a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of weak points. I'm not gonna deny that. I only gave it 3.5 stars. Everybody relax. Everybody calm down. But I had fun. Would own it. Would watch it again. Now, the last non-horror movie I have to talk about today is Baby Girl. From horror director, dark comedy director, really, Helena Rain. A high-powered CEO puts her career and family on the line when she begins a torrid affair with a much younger intern. Guys? Guys. Oh my god. Oh my god. Ooh. Ow! Ow! My thumb hit my eye. Oh my god. Oh my god. Ooh. Ow! Oh, some of my sparkles came off. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Okay. Oh, brother. That made it go a little bit pink, didn't it? It's fine. I got too excited about Baby Girl, and honestly, it was warranted. I don't regret that reaction just now. Oh, but I think that there's glitter in my eye. Okay, basically, I know a lot of you guys are not gonna want to hear this, but after seeing Nosferatu and kind of coming off of that, seeing Baby Girl, something that like actually had the audacity to explore feminine pleasure and feminine desire, I was like, this is what Nosferatu needed for me. For me, relax. Because we'll get into it later, but that just was one of my biggest issues. I was like, you seem to desperately want this to be from Ellen's perspective, but then we're not really gonna show the dirty, dirty bits. Very dry, that one. Baby Girl? Not a dry seat in the house. Unflinchingly sexy. Oh, unflinchingly bold. Nicole Kidman, my queen. Helena Rain, oh captain, my captain. I'm toying with giving that one a full review over on the Patreon just because I loved it so much. But I am gonna be ranking my top favorite non-horror movies of the year very soon. I think on my second channel. So, I might as well not ramble about it too much here. I thought it was a perfect film. I gave it 5 stars. It's one of my favorites of the year. Yep. Paris Dickinson and Nicole Kidman have some insane chemistry. Antonio Banderas, oh my god, I thought his performance was deliciously understated as well. He didn't get too many moments to shine, but when he did, he really did. Nicole Kidman carries this, and it just warms my heart so much that there is a role like this for a woman of her age. People can be like, she was already starred, blah, blah, blah. I'm saying it because it's true and because it applies. Now I definitely need to go back and see Eyes Wide Shut. I've heard that Baby Girl is now like the Gen Z version of Eyes Wide Shut, and people are like, oh my god, and it also stars Nicole Kidman. So, consider me sat for that sometime soon. And the last thing I'll say, oh my god. The dog. The imagery with the dog. fucking forget about it. I have to move on. Okay, time to get into horror rewatches. We'll do this really fast. Of course, rewatched Nightmare Before Christmas, and this one I did a full deep dive on. That might be my longest deep dive of a solo film. It's like 44 minutes. Really enjoyed researching that one. But the next one would be Frozen from, I think, 2010. We did a watch along for this one, so hopefully you caught that, but if not, it will be re-uploaded to the Patreon probably within the next few months. I thought it was okay. It wasn't as good as the first time that I watched it, I guess just because like I knew it was gonna happen, but it's perfectly serviceable. I feel like it's one that I'll revisit every couple winters. I also revisited Misery because I do have a deep dive coming out in the next few weeks. Gotta get that one out while it's still winter. That one also wasn't quite as good as I remembered. I don't know why. I think it's probably because I read the book in between the last time that I watched it, and the book is just, it's just a lot better, okay? Also rewatched Jason Lives and the Friday the 13th remake because we had another Friday the 13th in December, and we did watch-alongs for those, so hopefully you caught those as well. I ended up falling way more in love with the remake than I ever have before. That one is so much fun. I love the remake. I really do. I also rewatched Gremlins. That one's just a classic. We watched that together too. Did a lot of Christmas watch-alongs in December, obviously. And then I also rewatched Christmas Bloody Christmas. I loved it just as much as I did the first time around. Now that I'm a little bit older and my prefrontal cortex is a bit more developed, I did find some of the dialogue a bit annoying. They do use the F word like every other millisecond in the first act of the movie, and it's a bit much. It's a bit posery. I don't know. But overall, it's just dripping in style, and I love it, and underrated lead. But now, to get into my new watches of old horror. We're starting off with Messengers 2, The Scarecrow. I talked about the first one last month because it stars Kristen Stewart. Somebody sent it to me on physical media, so I gave it a go. This next one just follows another sorry family that moves into a house in the middle of a bunch of corn, and I guess paranormal stuff starts happening. It's a little bit more of like a monkey's paw situation. It doesn't feel like a sequel to the first movie, really, at all. Like, it doesn't really involve anything from the first movie at all. It does star Norman Reedus, but don't be tempted by that. Absolutely don't. In this movie, there are 2 cases of a sexual assault. One of them is fairly graphic. It's a case of marital rape, actually. Very weird. Very weird. Didn't like it. I thought that like the climax was actually really fun once the actual scarecrow stuff starts happening. I wish that was the whole movie because the rest of it is just kind of a drag. Ooh, guess who also finally watched The Sadness? Yeah, the Sadness from 2021 that had everybody in a stranglehold going like, oh my god, most disturbing horror movie ever. This one follows a virus outbreak, and it's pretty standard stuff. These zombies are unique though in that they still can speak. They are fast. They just are acting very debaucherous. This virus takes away all of your inhibitions, basically. And that's putting it really lightly. You can imagine there is some horrific stuff that happens in this film. It is one of the more graphic movies that I've ever seen, probably. And so if you want some good carnage candy, some really good practical effects, a lot of gore, a good zombie movie, then try it out. There's a lot of really vile, just disgusting, bleak shit that happens. And stuff that I'm just not a fan of. Like, definitely look up some trigger warnings. This movie gets foul. It goes places that most movies don't go to for a reason, you know? I was gonna give it a dedicated review on the Patreon, but I realized that I just didn't have that much to say about it. And also, the night that I was gonna do it, I spontaneously got invited out for drinks. So I bailed on my responsibility and I went out and I got drinks with my friends. And it's fine. And it turns out that it's fine because I don't really want to talk about it that much. Now, next we have P2, which this one I had really been anticipating because I have heard about it for a long time, but on my watch list for a long time, and I was like, Christmas movie, slay, let's watch. This movie follows a woman that is just trying to leave the goddamn office when the security guard essentially traps her there, and it becomes this cat and mouse game between the two of them. I'm sorry that I just was a little bit underwhelmed by this. I really enjoyed the cast. I thought the performances were great. I loved the use of location, but beyond that, I didn't really seem to latch on to anything, did I? It just, once the action got going, it felt really basic. I don't know if I just was like expecting too much from the backstory between the characters or something, because I'm like, surely once the action gets rolling, there's gonna be more up this movie's sleeve to like be revealed to me and stuff. Not really the case, not really, but I think if I manage my expectations the next time going in, then I would enjoy it, because I would rewatch it. Oh, I also finally caught up on the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise, which I do not recommend. I would recommend, surprisingly, only the second film, because the second movie actually, in like the first act, is just a highlight highlight reel of the first movie. So you get completely caught up, and then also it's the whole first movie but with better pacing, and then a bunch of super insane stuff. So that one I do recommend, and as for the rest of it, not really at all. But if you want to see me get fairly stoned and rank the entire franchise with some spoilers, then check that out on Patreon. That was my Christmas gift to the patrons. Oh, I finally watched Unbreakable, you guys. One of M. Night Shyamalan's most famous films, I guess, and one that I just had never caught up on, despite being a big fan for many years of my life. I grew up on Signs. A security guard, having been the sole survivor of a high-fatality train crash, finds himself at the center of a mysterious theory that explains his consistent physical good fortune. When news of his survival is made public, a man whose own body is excessively weak tracks him down in an attempt to explain his unique, unbreakable nature. Look, I had already seen Split and Glass before seeing Unbreakable, and still the twists of this movie threw me for a loop. I now have such an appreciation for Bruce Willis, who truly, I know he's always described this way, but like just truly is such an everyman. I mean, he's still hot. He's still hot. He's doing the powerballed thing, which not a lot of men can do. I mean, they could. What I mean is that, like, when men start to go bald, they cling on to their hair, what little is left, even if it's just the sides, which I don't understand. To me, it is hot. Like, there is just, I think there's agency in being like, you know what? Zzz, all gone. Powerballed. That is that's so off the point. He's great in the movie. I think that was my point after all. What do you know? We got there. The themes of strength and weakness, and then also how he plays off of his son and how his son perceives him. Really well done. I kind of already am itching to watch the movie again, just so that now I can pick up more on that theme. And then of course, Samuel L. Jackson, once again, oh Captain, my Captain. I think because he is such a huge blockbuster icon, that I feel like I can safely say this kind of is an underrated role for him. But honestly, more than anything, one of the biggest impressions that I was left with after watching the movie was, damn, that's a good score. I said on Letterboxd that it tickled my brain, because it's true. Oh, I don't know why. It touched something in me. Really enjoyed Unbreakable. I didn't think that it was like all that and a cup of tea, but really enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars. I'm already kind of itching to revisit. M. Night Shyamalan really is just like one of the most interesting directors. He truly is. I finally also watched Gremlins 2. If you are a lover of the first Gremlins and you've never seen the sequel, I really do implore you to watch. It is a strange experience. We did a watch along, so once again, you can see my real-time reactions to the movie. But if I haven't done so already, all those watch-alongs from the past few months will be private soon, and then they will be exclusive to the patrons. So something to keep in mind. A lot of first-time watches of some classics. I also finally watched the original Nosferatu from 1922. I did this after watching the new one in theaters because I was so curious after being underwhelmed by the new movie. I was like, what is the source material all about? Which, that's not even a fair question because Dracula is the original source material and I had already read the book, but alas. Anyways, of course, this is a silent film. It is iconic, one of the most famous horror movies of all time, one that was nearly lost to history, but luckily we have it still. I wasn't over the moon about it. I think because I had already watched The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, I think that kind of set my standard for German Expressionism and that level of cinematography and of set design and everything. I don't know. The Nosferatu wasn't, again, it just wasn't like all that to me. I really enjoyed it, would watch it again, need to own it for sure. And it definitely has me interested in exploring more of the silent film era because that's a huge blind spot for me. My biggest takeaway honestly was just that, oh, well, Robert Eggers didn't really do that much with this source material. Okay, but again, more on that in a minute because we do need to talk about Nosferatu again. This just has been the week of Nosferatu. Lastly, my last new watch of an old horror movie would be Fright Night, but the remake from 2011? The synopsis of this movie doesn't matter. Like, it truly doesn't matter. I was going to go just like Google it here, but it doesn't matter. Colin Farrell is hot. That's the main takeaway. That's kind of like all you need to know going in. Also, McLovin is there and he plays the same character. Some rather wild things happen to his character that I am very glad that I bore witness to. It's a ridiculous movie. It was giving Twilight because that was the Twilight era. That prompted me to write a Letterboxd review saying, is this Twilight for boys? Because it feels as as such. It feels as such because there is a little bit more of the male gaze. You got Imogen Poots. She is looking very, very, very beautiful in the movie. But then also, is it Twilight for the gays? Because the men are so gorgeous in the movie. And yes, the people are gorgeous in Twilight, of course. But the focus of those movies and the perspective is more on feminine fixation and feminine lust. It's not so much about the sex of it all, you know? Whereas in Fright Night, it's you know what I'm talking about. If you're a fan of Fright Night, you know what the hell I'm talking about. Also, majority of the men in my audience are gay, so I don't need to explain it to you. It was fun. I didn't think it was good, and I didn't even really think that it was so bad that it was good, but yet I still was inclined to give it a heart. I feel like having the proper expectations yet again, knowing how goofy it is and everything, like the next time I go into it, I'll probably have some sort of drinking game prepared, or maybe I will be part of the ship, part of the crew, if you know what I mean. That's a bit of an inside joke with the Cult of Haunted Hippie, but I'll let you in on it, okay? I'll let you in. If you get close, if you listen here, it just means getting high, that's it. So yeah, enjoyed it, but also it's bad. Now, new releases, baby. First up, we have The Devil's Bath, which I already talked about for about 10 minutes in our last little episode on Patreon, but if you didn't catch that one, The Devil's Bath is a very interesting film. In 1750, Agnes doesn't feel at home in her husband's world. A shocking act seems to be the only way out. It's a profound and disturbing psychogram of a woman based on historical records. Now, Veronica Franz and Severin Fiala, they also were the directors of The Lodge and Goodnight Mommy, a fearsome directing duo. Ooh, God love them. The Devil's Bath is, not to super spoil it, but I think it's definitely gonna make my top 5 horror movies of the year. I gave it a perfect rating. I don't always like bleak stuff, but when I do, it's because it's something that's done so well or connects to such an intimate part of the feminine experience. And it doesn't have to be the feminine experience, just when it's like relatable on a deeply human level, which this is. The Apple Orchard? Unrelated. It's also not explicit, but there's like a splash of a bit of a folk horror element to it. Really, the main horror element is Catholicism, because, well, you know, and patriarchy, and also literally just having to be alive during the 1750s. You know what? I think I was born in the right generation, because thank God I wasn't alive back then. And yet I felt so connected to it because still to this day, so much of the woman's experience is tied to things that happen in that movie. We've come a long way, obviously, since 1750, but in so many ways we actually haven't. It just felt really profound. And if the world was a sane place, then our lead, what's her name? Anya Piash? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I believe that is an Austrian or German name. She would become a millionaire. She would be a worldwide star. Oh, transcendent her performance is. I don't say that lightly either, but truly, like, I do not feel jealousy at her starring in this film. It looked really hard. What she was channeling was just so authentic and horrible, but beautiful. And congrats on the movie, guys. You made a perfect film. Well done. Congrats. That one's on Shudder, so please do try to catch that one. Next up, we have Night Bitch, which I feel like I actually probably shouldn't have put in the horror category, but it does definitely depict the horrors of raising a child when they're between 2 and 3 years of age. I give this one an entire review over on the Patreon, so be sure you catch that over there. I also gave an entire dedicated review to Y2K on this channel, so don't worry, that one is not behind a paywall. Loved. I also loved Heretics, and I'm definitely biased on this one because it was directed by a friend. It stars a couple of my friends. Heretics is not complex in story. It is much like a lot of found footage movies you might see, but it follows a very connected and dramatic and charismatic group of friends as they go and explore an abandoned house. I was at the premiere for this one. Yeah. I dressed up in my feathery thing. Yeah, that was cute. This one, it's an asylum movie. They shot it in 4 days. They had like $35,000. And with a cast that big, the budget was stretched. They also all only met each other 2 hours before they started shooting. They didn't even have an opportunity to do any chemistry readings or anything. Jose did not have a chance to audition them in person. And somehow their chemistry is flawless. Like, it's so on point. My favorite part of the movie is like the entire first act where we're literally just hanging out with this friend group. That's how good they were all riffing off of each other. This movie was also entirely improvised. There was no script. And if you want to hear more about the process and everything, I actually conducted a live interview with Jose and a lot of the cast, and that interview is still up on the channel for your enjoyment. So you can learn a lot about the movie, learn all about it there. I mostly just had a lot of fun, and it's pretty goofy, but like if you go in with that expectation, if you know anything about Asylum, I think that it definitely exceeds the typical asylum standard for sure, but just know what you're getting into. You know what I mean? I think Jose really said it best in his interview where these people that are directing movies for the asylum or writing for the asylum, yeah, they're not given a lot of means, but like this was the avenue that they were able to find to, you know, do their craft. The industry is nearly impossible. So yeah, if that's how they found they were able to make movies, then good for them. Anyway, I did genuinely enjoy Heretics. I think that I would have enjoyed the chemistry of the cast even if they weren't literally my friends, because I did go on to star in Jose's next movie. That one's not coming out until next year, but I also starred alongside Sarah, Scott, and Shelby that were all in Heretics. So something for us all to look forward to. Just a couple more. Next up we have Carnage for Christmas. This one you can find on Shudder, and this is from such an exciting new director. Let me give you the synopsis. When true crime podcaster and sleuth trans woman Lola visits her hometown at Christmas for the first time since running away and transitioning, the vengeful ghost of a historical murderer and urban legend seemingly arises to kill again. Alice Mayo McKay, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Listen to this. She is 20 years old, and I believe that this was her 5th feature film. Are you joking? I think that she's Australian, and I don't know how she is getting these funded. They're obviously very low budget, but it's hard enough to get movies funded in Australia as it is. So I don't know how she's just getting out there and doing it. Maybe she has wealthy parents, because I don't know how. Someone that I would love to speak to, someone that I would love to interview. Alice, hit me up. This movie just was so fun. Like, it's not gonna win any technical awards, I don't think, but Jeremy Monroe, the lead who plays Lola, she is undeniable. The way that she commands a room, like, I don't know what to credit more, the writing or the performances. It's got to be a combination of the two. But because this movie, you know, like I said, not gonna win any technical awards, because there's not too much visual eye candy. Sometimes it is fun, sometimes it's very colorful, it looks fine, but because you don't have the aesthetic candy so much, the performances, how I couldn't get over really how like just naturalistic she was. It has to be something innate within her that just allows her the confidence to move the way she does. I'm like, I want to move like that, and I think I do. I really think I do, and that's why I connected to her so much. I really love the review that somebody wrote for this on Letterboxd, and they said something to the effect of what I was saying, how like, yeah, this is not a perfect film, but the fact that Alice is 20 years old and she just simply has the gumption to get out and like make these fucking films, that is what's truly amazing about it. So much fun. Definitely one that I think that I would revisit. I wish that it had a different name. I wish that it was called Toy Maker. Somebody else pointed this out, because then there would be the opportunity to, you know, bring, I won't spoil it, but you know, maybe this killer or another iteration of this killer, or bring some characters back and make it a franchise, because I really do see the potential there. But the fact that it's called Carnage for Christmas, I don't really think it lends itself to that unless they're exclusively Christmas related from here on out. I wouldn't protest that, but I'm like, damn, they kind of painted themselves into a little bit of a box there. Anyway, oh god, I have to hurry up because I'm being picked up in literally 5 minutes to go out to dinner before our New Year's shenaniganery. Okay, Nosferatu, damn, I can't fully get back into this again. I just want to read some of my favorite comments that I got because I feel like they put my words into better form than I did. The first one that I just pulled up, Kylie, another great video, and from one of your countless gay male fans up in Canada. Happy New Year. Okay, so this person is saying, love classic gothic old school vampire stuff. The second half of it actually made me really uncomfortable in a bad way. Just like you, I keep thinking about it and listening and reading to others' perspectives to try and work through my thoughts. However, I'm still left to feel uncomfortable. Perhaps it's my own interpretation of what was supposed to be her lust and consent for the Count, but for me, it read as the opposite of consent and lust. It felt like she was forced and trapped in this abusive type relationship. Like, how could she lust after him if she's possessed? If she's not possessed and is choosing to go to him, then why is it framed as possession? To that I say, I guess that like that can be an interpretation of the lust, of like her attraction being so deep that it feels possessive. And I can see that. I loved Ellen's encounter with the Count and her laying it on thick how much she hated him because it felt as if she's fighting back. However, for the end of the film, for it to be labeled as consent made me feel downright gross. Hell, even in her interactions with her husband during one of those moments of possession, I had a hard time telling if it was truly her or the Count, and thus, that scene didn't sit right to me, especially if Thomas was supposed to be the opposite of the Count in regards to love and relationship. My first thought would be to hold Ellen, console her? To me, it would feel more clearly labeled why she loves him and would die to save Thomas since he treated her with love, not lust. Although that's my perspective. And then someone else like agreed but had an opposite reading. It was really interesting. I was also left very uncomfortable but came away with an almost polar opposite reading of the film. To me, it was clear that Thomas absolutely loved Ellen. Ellen was simply portrayed as someone who was, shall we say, troubled with no real depth to it. No real reason as to why. She just had abandonment issues and cared more about getting her rocks off than allowing her husband to provide for the both of them. I don't know if I agree with that. She already had a connection with the darkness, and the ending implies that the only way to defeat the darkness is by choosing it, validating it. To translate that to modern times, this would be the equivalent of the damsel in distress, actively choosing to be with the abusive piece of shit while she has so many better influences in her life, simply because she is so alone and horny. It left me with a very bad taste in my mouth as I saw the film trying to justify women falling into toxic cycles, even going so far as to calling them heroic for succumbing to the darkness, like some fucked up martyrdom. It really wasn't right. I have no idea how this happened coming from the same guy who told a similar story, but with pretty much the exact opposite ending in The Witch. I agree. I think The Witch is really what made me so confused about the lack of feminine perspective in Nosferatu, and I still haven't rewatched it, so I might have to talk about it again at the end of January, just because also I literally need to go. Like, I have to go right now, so not much can be done about that, and hopefully next time I will be able to get into more of the perspectives of people that really enjoyed the movie, because other people had really interesting takes, so I do want to get into those too, although by then you might not be interested anymore, so let me know. Hi, I'm editing now, and I promise I do want to unpack other perspectives, but I want to wait until I've seen the movie again, just because I feel like my thoughts might shift a bit. So for now, just this one last comment, because this was the one that like really made things click for me and why I was having such a problem with Ellen's character. So here we go. I've been watching a lot of erotic horror, and this review helped me put my finger on why the supposed horniness didn't work for me. It is through a male lens of understanding feminine desire, meaning that what should be portrayed as pleasurable is shrouded in violence and shame. Ellen's recounting of how her father treated her, especially after he found her outside, and how she felt her pure love for Thomas redeemed her, drove that home. She said it felt wonderful to be with Orlok, and I read the violence in their initial relations to be mutually pleasurable. There was no real unpacking of why her loneliness called to Orlok in terms of family dynamics. Also, her powers / being born as a being connected to supernatural realms was completely reduced to being the perfect sacrifice for Orlok. They're right, like that was just not explained whatsoever. Like, what do you mean? Was she like a prophet? Like, I didn't get that. We can see this in the character of Anna. She was the perfect wife according to the movie, sexually available to the husband while still being pregnant, while not being a doormat for Frederick in a good way. However, she is punished for caring too much for the social pariah of Ellen by being the first to be infected in the family with the rats, noticeably over her lower stomach. Then she wasn't even free from her husband's desire after death. Her body was Frederick's, and there was no horniness there outside of the general taboo of necrophilia. TLDR, essentially, while this movie talks a lot about intimacy and desire, there's no genuine portrayal of feminine pleasure or even interest in it outside of how it takes women away from male consumption. And that's not so much erotic as a morality lesson. Yeah, I can't say it any better. I'm still pretty hung up on this take, so had to include it, and next time we'll unpack other aspects of the movie if I talk about it again. Anyway, I must go. I must away. So, if you would like to get more fun videos like this, then subscribe. Like I said, let me capture your soul. Let me tend to it. Let me hug it. Let me hold on to it for you. It can also be captured on my second channel, where I talk about physical media a lot and also post travel content. And I've already mentioned my Patreon a bazillion times, so check that out as well. Everything you need is linked down below. More than anything, I hope that you had a great New Year's. I hope that 2025 brings you health and abundance. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope I catch you in the next one. Bye. We're rocking together, baby, all 2025. Yeah.